Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama with me, Frank Pereira. And as always, let's get you a quick roundup of all the significant stories from across the world this week. At least 13 dead and hundreds injured as Israeli rockets target a UN relief shelter inside a school in the Gaza Strip. The death toll has crossed 760 with no signs of relief. Wreckage of the crashed Air Algerie plane found in Mali. The plane disappeared off the radar late on Wednesday. All 116 people on board dead. Government reassures opposition. Sushma Swaraj assures Lok Sabha that government will make all efforts to bring back 41 captive Indians from Iraq. And Commonwealth Games gets underway in Glasgow. Queen Elizabeth II kicks off the event and declares the Games open after a glittering ceremony. Our top focus on the week, on the show this week, of course, is Israeli bombs struck a United Nations shelter on Thursday, killing 15 people in Gaza. The deaths prompted instant outrage from Palestinians and from the UN, with Secretary General Ban Ki-moon calling it totally unacceptable. The bloody conflict in Gaza is now in its 18th day. It has killed more than 800 Palestinians as well as 34 Israelis. Here's more.
The grim humanitarian dimension of the Israeli-Hamas conflict struck home with full force on Thursday. Israeli bombs hit a school in Beit Hanun, killing 15 people and injuring around 200 others sheltering in it.
Unfortunate result of the conflict ongoing and a tragedy for sure. There is still some question marks about who is responsible for this action. In any case, it could be errant fire from the IDF or rockets landing from Gaza terrorists, but we still don't know. It's still a question mark.
I was shocked and appalled by what had happened in the Beit Hanun UNRWA school. It's totally unacceptable. I have condemned it strongly.
The incident triggered violent protests in the West Bank. About 10,000 protesters clashed with the border police. At least 2 Palestinians died in the scuffle. Clashes were also reported in East Jerusalem. Palestinian groups called for a day of rage. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State John Kerry, who is in Cairo, presented a ceasefire plan to both Israel and Hamas. Any plan must be approved both by Israel's Security Cabinet and by senior Hamas leaders, including Qatar-based Khalid Mishal.
Tragic incident today and every day just underscores the work we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve. So we're going to keep at it, and we need to actually sit down and get to work.
British Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond has joined a string of foreign diplomats visiting Cairo amid Egypt's efforts to enforce a ceasefire agreement it proposed last week. He met with Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry on Thursday.
The UK, along with the rest of the international community, is determined to do everything that it can to help to bring the current conflict and bloodshed to a rapid end.
However, the United Nations concedes that foreign governments were running out of options. UN top official Valerie Amos said persuading Israel to lift its 8-year blockade was extremely difficult.
And joining me on the show this week is Mr. Ishrat Aziz, former ambassador to several countries in the Middle East, Gulf and Northern Africa as well. Ambassador Aziz, thank you for joining us on the show this week. Let's talk about this crisis now in Israel and Palestine. Of course, the Gaza Strip is what we're talking about. We've seen over the last couple of weeks, or more than a couple of weeks, of course, there is a relentless attack on the Gaza Strip by the Israelis. Is it really justified? Is it really called for?
It is not justified. That much is clear. I'm glad you used the word Gaza Strip, because it's a very small strip of land. People don't realize that in that small strip of land, which is about 139 square miles,
yes,
more than 1.8 million people live, which gives a density of population of 13,000 per square mile. please remember that India's population, which is also a very densely populated country, is only 1,000 per square mile. So the war that is going on is bound to lead to casualties, and I think this war is not justified. There were incidents. 3 Israeli young teenagers were kidnapped and then they were found dead. They were killed. In retaliation, one totally innocent, again, Palestinian kid was kidnapped and killed, half burned, body was found. And then it has led to this war. Now in this war, by now I think 35 or 36 Israelis have been killed, yes. Only 2 are civilians. And on the other hand, the total number that I saw in the morning today is about 870. Yes. And more than 80% are innocent civilians. So this kind of war is not justified, and there is a solution to the problem which should be attempted. And let me mention one thing here also. I think the viewers should know that Gaza is really an occupied territory. Everybody recognizes that. The land borders, the sea coast, the airspace, the water and electricity supplies, and the communication system of Gaza is controlled by Israelis. So it is a very uncomfortable situation for the people living in Gaza. And I think unless there is a solution, broader solution to the problem, for which we have been trying, I mean, that has been our goal. Instead of making statements on every incident, our goal has been to focus on a solution to the problem. And unless that underlying problem is solved, this will happen again and again.
That's true. I mean, it's interesting that you brought up the underlying problem, because something like this has been happening for decades on. We've seen that, you know, in 2012, there was a similar kind of offensive. Now, again, there is something like this. So the underlying issue really needs to be addressed. Is anyone working to address those underlying issues? Because at the moment, it seems like everyone is looking for a quick fix. They're saying ceasefire and nothing else is being uttered.
Attempts are being made. But unless there serious pressure is brought onto the parties concerned, and particularly Israel, this will not move forward. You very rightly pointed out, this is probably the 5th round of such fighting in Gaza.
Yes.
There was something called Operation Cast Lead in, I think, 2008. And after that, there was also a report called Goldstone Commission report on the deaths and killings in that fighting, which was, in fact, the killings were, the deaths were much larger than what they have so far. One doesn't know. Maybe this time it will cross that limit also.
Yes.
But that report again was suppressed, or rather put in cold storage because of US pressure. Now, as you know, this issue was considered in the UN Human Rights Council recently, and you know what Navi Pillay, the UN Human Rights Commissioner, has said, that there have been violations during this fighting, war crimes probably, things amounting to war crimes, and also things amounting to humanitarian killings. But the point is that, as I said, this issue, unless the underlying problem is resolved, this will happen again and again.
True, it will happen again and again and again. And it's interesting that you brought up, of course, India and Navi Pillay, as well as you brought up as well America and what the Americans are doing. Do you think that the Americans really are putting pressure on Israel? They're coming out and condemning what's happening. They're saying, you know, it shouldn't happen, it's sad, it's unfortunate, and all so on and so forth. But we've seen the kind of stance America has taken on the eastern Ukrainian crisis, the MH17 issue, Iraq, for instance. You've seen how vociferous and how loud they are about these issues. But whereas Israel, nothing much is being said. They just say, yeah, it's unfortunate and, you know, it shouldn't happen, blah, blah, blah.
What you have pointed out is factually true. And the thing is that this takes us to a very complex issue, the internal American politics. If you study it very carefully, you will find that while administration is very keen to solve this problem because it leads to lots of disadvantageous situation for America globally. They have been ineffective because of the influence of the internal Jewish community lobbies with the Congress, where they have a tremendous amount of influence.
Influence, yes, indeed.
So the result is that administration wants to do something and is unable to achieve its objective. I may mention here something very interesting. In 1956, England, France, and Israel had attacked Egypt and occupied Sinai. And the then US President Eisenhower just gave a one-line directive, withdraw from Sinai, and the three countries withdrew from Sinai as quickly as they could.
Yes.
Now, you know that John Kerry has been spending time in Middle East these past few days. He has been to Middle East earlier also. Other secretaries of state have been to Middle East. And yet, what has he been able to achieve? There is talk of a 12-hour ceasefire. Even that we don't know when it will start, what will be the terms and conditions of that ceasefire. But it shows the changed circumstances, the change in global equations. But what I want to emphasize is that as far as we are concerned, it is an area of vital importance for us.
Yes, it is.
We have interests on both sides. We have sensitive technology cooperation with Israel, but we have 7 million Indians living in the Gulf and working, which, by the way, is almost equal to the population of Israel.
Yes.
7 million Indians living, working. They remit to India something like $35 billion, which is, by the way, their remittances to India, or the money that comes from the Gulf to India by way of remittances, is more than half the remittances that come to India from the rest of the world. We get 70% of our oil from that region.
Yes.
So all that makes it an area of vital importance, and such crises affect us.
Indeed, such crises do affect us, and India has taken a stance as far as this issue is concerned. We've seen in the past that, India has been quite skeptical about taking a stance as far as the issue itself is concerned. This time around, in fact, India has gone out and said that, the UN resolution on looking into the war crimes that have taken place in Gaza is something that India has gone out and supported. What do you make of this step that has been taken?
I think that all I can say is the right step to take. It is in consonance with our interests. As you know, our ambassador to UN made a statement. Our ambassador to United Nations Human Rights Council made a statement. And if you put the two together, and also we are a party to the BRICS statement on this issue. So if you put them all together, you find that there is a very clear, balanced policy. And I think we have to make it clear to everybody that we are serious about our statement. I mean, it should not be taken lightly, and that's what we will work for. And I think that's a balanced approach also.
Okay.
So I think I'm glad that we took a stand. We did not abstain there in the Human Rights Council. Mind you, how many countries voted, which countries voted for it. 29 countries, I think, voted, 17 abstained. We know who they are. Those, they probably abstained under pressure. And only one country voted against it. So you can see the isolation of United States. I'm not a foreign policy advisor to United States, but if you read men like Brzezinski and others, they have been constantly saying things on this issue, that this is something which is putting US foreign policy at a great disadvantage globally.
Right. Very rightly said, very rightly put. Thank you so much, Ambassador Aziz, for joining us on the program this week and putting those things into perspective for us as far as the Gaza issue is concerned. On that note, of course, it's time for a very short break. But on the other side, we'll tell you all about the Air Algerie crash, which killed all 116 on board. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Back, you're watching Rajya Sabha Television. Well, France on Friday confirmed that there are no survivors in the Air Algeria AH5017 crash that took place on Thursday. The Air Algeria flight from Burkina Faso to Algiers went missing with 116 passengers on board. Here's more.
The wreckage of the Air Algeria flight was found on Thursday, a day after it crashed in northern Mali. All 116 passengers have been pronounced dead. French President François Hollande confirmed the news, sending his condolences to the grieving families.
L'avion d'Air Algérie, à bord duquel voyageaient 51 de nos compatriotes, a été retrouvé cette nuit à Gossi, c'est-à-dire à l'est du Mali, à la frontière du Burkina Faso. Les soldats français qui sont déjà sur place ont sécurisé le lieu et ont procédé aux premières investigations. Il n'y a hélas aucun survivant.
Hollande said one flight data recorder was also recovered and would be quickly analyzed. A team of 100 French soldiers traveled to the crash site near Mali's border with Burkina Faso on Friday. Efforts are on to find the cause of the crash. Aviation's officials say they lost contact with the flight about 50 minutes after takeoff, when pilots reported severe storms. The aircraft is believed to have been destroyed at the moment it crashed. The McDonnell Douglas MD-83 was chartered from the Spanish airliner Swiftair.
Well, the government this week assured Lok Sabha that all efforts are being made to secure the release of 41 Indians held captive in Iraq for the last 45 days. In her reply to calling the attention motion on the situation in Iraq, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj also gave the details of actions taken by the government to assist the Indians stranded in Iraq. Here's a report.
अध्यक्ष जी 22 जुलाई की स्थिति के अनुसार 4000 भारतीय नागरिकों को भारत की वापस यात्रा के लिए सहायता प्रदान की गई है, जिसमें शिविर कार्यालय की स्थापना के बाद से 3000 से अधिक नागरिकों को हमने एयर टिकट्स भी दी हैं। भारतीय नागरिकों विशेष रूप में मौसूल में बंदी बनाए गए 41 भारतीय नागरिकों की सुरक्षा और संरक्षा हमारे लिए अत्यधिक चिंता और तत्काल कार्रवाई का मामला है। हम उनकी सुरक्षित वापसी के लिए कोई कसर नहीं छोड़ेंगे, ये मैं आपको आश्वासन देती हूँ।
External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj replying to the calling attention motion in the Lok Sabha on the situation in Iraq. She also listed the steps the government has taken to assist those who are still left behind in the country.
इराक में इस संकट की शुरुआत से ही हमने 15 जून को, 24 जून को और 28 जून को अपने नागरिकों को नियमित रूप से ट्रैवल एडवाइजरीज जारी की हैं। जिन भारतीय नागरिकों के पास यात्रा दस्तावेज नहीं है अथवा जिन्हें एयर टिकट जैसी अन्य सेवाओं और इमिग्रेशन क्लियरेंस के लिए सहायता की आवश्यकता है, उन्हें सलाह दी गई है कि वो बगदाद स्थित हमारे दूतावास से सहायता प्राप्त करें।
Congress member K.C. Venugopal, along with RSP's N.K. Premachandran and Aam Aadmi Party's Dhanamveer Gandhi, raised the issue in the House. They also sought a specific response on the fate of the 41 captive Indians.
41 construction workers, those who are from Punjab, are stranded in Iraq. Our External Affairs spokesperson confirmed the kidnapping of these 41 persons on June 18, madam. Already 45 days are over. What happened to them? If they are safe, what is the action taken by the government for evacuating them? The entire country is watching.
Sushma Swaraj said while all efforts are being made to secure their release, divulging the action plan would jeopardize their safety.
मैंने ये कहा कि सीधे हमारा कोई राब्ता उनसे नहीं है। बहुत सोर्सेज से हमें ये खबर मिली है वो सेफ हैं, अलाइव हैं और उनको खाना दिया जा रहा है, वो कुशल है। अरे भैया, एक्शन प्लान को ही अगर मैंने खुलासा कर दिया तो फिर सारी गोपनीयता ही खत्म हो जाएगी, क्योंकि बंधकों को निकालने का सबसे पहला फंडामेंटल प्रिंसिपल ये होता है सीक्रेसी, गोपनीयता।
The government suggested that Parliament should appeal to the captors to release Indians who have now spent the last 45 days in captivity.
Well, the first planes carrying victims' bodies from MH17 arrived in the Netherlands from Ukraine on Wednesday. Experts have now started identifying the bodies. A memorial service was held for the victims at Ukraine's Kharkiv airport on Wednesday. Netherlands declared it a national day of mourning. Here's more.
After several rounds of negotiations, the train carrying the remains of the MH17 crash victims arrived in the city of Kharkiv on Tuesday. The bodies will be handed to Netherlands for identification, where 2/3 of the victims came from.
The Dutch colleagues, they did report that they were quite happy with the way, at least inside the cars, things were being organized.
Late on Monday, the rebels handed over the black box recorders to the Malaysian officials in Donetsk.
Our sincere appreciation for giving us the opportunity
за то, что он дал нам возможность
and attain our request.
И принял во внимание нашу особую просьбу,
for handing over the 2 black box to the Malaysia.
The transfer follows international pressure on the rebels amid accusations that the plane was shot down by a Russian missile. EU ministers have called for harsher sanctions against Russia for its support for the rebellion.
Ich sage, wir bleiben weiterhin offen, mit allen politischen, auch diplomatischen Mitteln zur Entschärfung beizutragen. Aber es wird notwendig sein, diese Bereitschaft zu begleiten durch höheren Druck, das heißt auch in schärfere Maßnahmen einzutreten.
The rebels insist that the Kiev government is behind the plane being brought down. Russia said Kiev is using the incident to step up its punitive operations in the east.
Тем более недопустимо то, что мы наблюдаем сейчас. Киев, похоже, пытается использовать шок, который испытывает мировое сообщество от гибели малайского авиалайнера, для наращивания своей карательной операции на востоке страны. Неизбирательным артиллерийским и авиаударам подвергаются города, десятками гибнут их мирные жители. Хотелось бы спросить у тех членов Совета, которые уверяли нас в этом зале, что Киев будет проявлять сдержанность. Что за странный смысл вы вкладываете в это слово?
In a further sign of international concern, the United Nations Security Council unanimously adopted a resolution demanding full and independent investigation and for those responsible to be held accountable. The bodies of all 298 victims have been found, marking the end of the search work.
Well, much else has been unfolding around the world. Here's a quick wrap of the other international news of the week in our Globe Watch. At least 82 people were killed in 2 blasts in the northern Nigerian city of Kaduna on Wednesday. The blast targeted opposition leader and former President Muhammadu Buhari at a busy market and a moderate Muslim cleric about to lead a crowd in prayer. The attacks bore the hallmarks of Islamist group Boko Haram, but may also have been linked to politics ahead of the 2015 elections. A passenger plane crashed after a failed emergency landing in Taiwan, killing at least 47 people. The domestic flight crashed near Magong Airport on the outlying Penghu Island, hit by Typhoon Mathmo just as it came in for landing. There were a total of 54 passengers and 4 crew members on board. The Transport Ministry said 11 others were injured. Bulgaria's Prime Minister Plamen Orešarski stood down, leaving his successor to sort out the Balkan state's worst banking crisis since the 1990s. Orešarski, who'd been in power for just over 1 year, had flagged his departure after the ruling socialists' poor showing in May's European Parliament elections. His resignation paves the way for an interim government to take over in August and a general election in October. Efforts to tow away the Costa Concordia cruise liner started early on Wednesday. The liner is on its final journey to the port of Genoa for scrapping. Tugboats are slowly swinging the 115,000-ton vessel around to the east. Its removal is one of the biggest ever maritime salvage operations. The journey is expected to take 4 days. The Concordia struck a reef off the Italian island of Giglio in January 2012 and capsized, killing 32 people. Representatives of the majority Muslim Seleka have signed a ceasefire agreement with Christian factions to end fighting in the Central African Republic. The signing of a pact in Brazzaville, the capital of neighboring Republic of Congo, came after heavy pressure from regional mediators. Efforts are on to put an end to months of sectarian violence. Shifting focus now, it's time to bring you up to speed with all the sports news that you might have missed out on this week. Here's the sports action. Mexico will return to the Formula One calendar in 2015 after a 23-year absence. The race will be held at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico City. The circuit, which had hosted Grand Prix from 1963 to 70 and 1986 to 92, is likely to be reconfigured from the layout last used when Nigel Mansell won in 1992. Real Madrid have signed World Cup Golden Boot winner James Rodriguez from French league club Monaco for an estimated fee of €80 million on a 6-year deal. Rodriguez was one of the revelations of the World Cup, scoring in each of Colombia's games as they reached the quarterfinals of the competition for the first time. Barcelona has signed Valencia defender Jeremy Mateo on a 4-year deal for a fee of €15.8 million. Mateo made 126 league appearances in 5 seasons at Valencia, scoring 6 times. The 30-year-old Mateo will bolster the centre of Barcelona's defence after they missed out on any major trophies last season, and their porous backline was a significant factor. Germany coach Joachim Low will remain in the post until at least the 2016 European Championships in France. Low took over the national team after the 2006 World Cup, having previously been the assistant coach to Jürgen Klinsmann. Apart from Germany's 4th World Cup triumph, he also led the side to the final at Euro 2008 and the semi-finals of the 2010 World Cup and Euro 2012. Brazil has named former player Dunga as their new coach for the 2nd time. Dunga was the captain of Brazil's 1994 World Cup winning team and coached the national team from 2006 to 2011. Dunga replaces Luis Felipe Scolari, who resigned after Brazil reached the semi-finals of the 2014 World Cup but suffered the heaviest defeat in their history by losing 7-1 to Germany. Moving on now, here's a look at what's been creating a buzz in the world of show business from around the world. Here's our entertainment wrap.
The Rolls-Royce Phantom 5, owned by the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley, will soon be out for auction and is expected to fetch more than £180,000. A spokesperson for Burnham's, which is handling the auction, said that the white wheels, which was owned for 5 years by the late star before he donated it, was highly desirable by fans as well as classic car buffs. Presley, who was a constant backseat rider of the car in 1963, has customized the vehicle according to his tastes. Lucy Lawless is set to join the cast of Marvel's hit superhero-based TV series Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The 46-year-old former Xena warrior princess star, who is also an environmental campaigner and Greenpeace ambassador, has been signed for the show's 2nd season, which is due to air in September 2014. The series, which shows the Marvel superheroes fighting world threats post an epic battle of New York, which has not yet revealed Lawless' role or the details on how many episodes she will appear in. Steve Carell is set to star in Disney Studios' upcoming family adventure comedy Brooklyn Family Robinson. The project, which is being penned by Finding Nemo's Oscar-nominated co-writer David Reynolds, would also be produced by Carell along with his carousel production partner Charlie Hatzuk and Vance DeGeneres. Though the plot details are not disclosed, it is known that the film will center on patriarch of a family to be played by Carell, who moves his family from city life to island life. Idris Elba may sign up for Warner Brothers' new take on the English myth, which will be directed by Guy Ritchie, Knights of Round Table King Arthur. Elba will play Bedivere, Arthur's father's right-hand man who teaches Arthur how to lead an army in the film. The script of the film is reimagining of the story of King Arthur and his legendary knights of the Kingdom of Camelot. Miley Cyrus, who lost her beloved pooch Floyd in April, has now hired a dog psychic to help her get over the pet's death. Hollywood animal psychic Melissa Bachelor said that she uses telepathy to connect with dogs, which help her get images, feelings, or sometimes even words that they want to communicate with their owner. She added that the 21-year-old singer, who had also gotten a new tattoo as a tribute to her dog, was guilt-ridden as she wasn't present at the time of her pet's death.
Well, the Glasgow edition of the Commonwealth Games got underway with the thousands of athletes from 71 nations and territories taking part in the opening ceremony. The Indian contingent of 215 members was led by London Olympics silver medalist Vijay Kumar. We leave you this week with the visuals of the glittering event. Good night. See you again, same time, same place next week.
Welcome welcome the first team tonight. Come on in, India!